Welcome to the Stoned Heen View, a podcast series which interviews a range of sport club representatives and leading professional sport club personnel during the COVID-19 period. We find out what these people are doing during the current health crisis with some of our most popular sports seasons postponed. I'm Mark Heenan, and today I'm going to speak to a special guest, episode 61. We've also got the business edition, so I know it's hard on some of the businesses at the moment with the current COVID lockdown, but we want to find out people in a video sense, in video stories about what they're doing during COVID. So feel free to get in touch with the Stoned Heen View. But we have a special guest today. Look, he's been a player at North Shore. He's been a player at Drysdale in the Ballarat Football League, North Shore in the GFL. He's a two-time premiership player from Drysdale, 2009 and 2010. He's also the current coach of the Drysdale Football Club. And we've also had a guest on from the Drysdale Football Club who was the coach last year, his co-coach, who stood down. And may I say, I've got an apology to say to this bloke, because last year I called this guy Flybes when his nickname is Flybes. And I want to welcome to the program Luke Matthews, or Luke Flybes Matthews, to the Stoned Heen View, episode 61. Welcome to the program, and I want to apologise after last year. And how's lockdown going, Luke?
Yeah, g'day, Mark. Great to be on board and have a chat. No worries about the apologies. Call me Flybes. You're not the first and you won't be the last that gets it mixed up. It's a sort of a bit of a weird nickname, but yeah, looking forward to having a chat with you, mate.
How did you get that nickname? And you know what? If I want to get a reward system, we don't live that too far away. I could just throw it to you and you could catch it right now.
Oh, it's a really long story. Yeah, back from the junior days at North Shore in under 13s, we were a group of mates that we all played together, just young. We used to, stick around after a game and watch the seniors and, just young, immature guys. We were just a bit of banter with, I think it was against South Barwon, some supporters there. And it's a long story. That word just stuck. It's not even a word, I don't think. And then, Monday night at training, bit of banter and these words came back up and it just stuck. So
I sent out some cryptic clues, I should say, with some of our guests coming up. But look, as you know, part of how we started up the podcast was to do with COVID and sport. Now, there are many things to unpack here, but we want to talk about football first. So lockdown 4.0, right? No community sport the last 2 weekends. I presume you've been back at training. What's your understanding from local governance with AFL Barwon, but also how have you what's the narrative been like at training during this sort of period? So I'm talking from a previous week where you could train on a Thursday night, then you went into lockdown, no games that weekend, no games the weekend after, and training this week. So could you just tell us what's happened to you in training and Drysdale Football Club coaching over the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's obviously a bit of a challenge and a bit tricky and something that we didn't want to happen. We thought we're all past the COVID and the lockdowns, but unfortunately it's come back. Yeah, that first night, the Thursday night, we opted not to train, and we actually all headed to the Drysdale pub, one of our major sponsors. So we thought we'd just not train, head to the local pub, and we all caught up for a bit of a feed, a couple of drinks, bit of a chat about the scenario. And then that weekend we had off. We just let the players enjoy some free time. Probably, we didn't want to push anything at them. A lot of uncertainty of what was going to happen. And then we put some training programs in place for the players for the following week to do on a Tuesday, Thursday in their own time. And then obviously, there was the possibility of playing, last week round 10, which would have been against Torquay, but that never eventuated. And the players have been really good. I think probably last year they've learned from it, prepared probably, I suppose, as best you can be. And, they took it upon themselves to run their own training session on Saturday as well, so which was really good. And then, this week we've been fortunate enough to hit the track. And, last night we had a great training session. It was good just to get back together, and fingers crossed we're back out playing this week.
Now, I had a coach on last week who was a GFL coach, and he talked about even last year, and we don't need to discuss the lockdown, but the longer you don't play, and what I mean by that is that if there's 2 weekends where you haven't played, do you feel that you need to have a training block, even if it's more than 1 or 2 sessions, rather than going into a game cold?
Probably just depends, if you're not together as a group for probably, 3-4 weeks, I think you're running a big risk of injuries. I suppose for us this time around, the other week, when we did go into lockdown, I was a bit concerned just because we've had a big injury list this year. And we've had lots of players returning from injury the week before, and then over this, lockdown period, they would have been coming back. So we've had lots of players miss 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. So that's a long time off for them, and throw on the actual 2 weeks of lockdown as well. So I was a bit concerned for them, but in some ways we've tried to turn it into a blessing in disguise that the 2 weeks off to get a bit more run in the league's confidence. It's good that we've been able to have it in a training block this week. But yeah, you don't want it to drag on too long. If we're not, like similar to last year, you wouldn't want to be not training or playing for 3-4 weeks. That's when you're going to run the risk of injuries again for sure.
And of course, the game that you're supposed to be playing next is against the Northern Ballarat arch rival, who really,
Port Arlington.
from previous interviews I've heard you talk about this, is do they really prepare for you going into this game? And looking at Drysdale at the moment, they're 4-4. So you are 6 on the ladder. So you're on the cusp of the finals. So I guess in some ways, it is an important stage, but you haven't played 2 rounds of football. One of the games you were supposed to have played against was Ocean Grove, and that didn't eventuate. So they're 5th. You're on the same amount of wins, or you're 6th on the ladder. So do you sort of look at now and think, right, we've had one half of the season. We had a little mini break in the middle. There'll be another break coming up with the school holidays as well. But do you almost put this season in 2 halves now?
Yeah, you do. It's a bit tricky, I suppose. And it's so tight, the Ballarat. It's such an even competition that, a lot of coaches do say that they are 8-point games, and especially that one against Ocean Grove a fortnight ago that we missed out. That was, massive, both around that 5th, 6th position at the moment. It would have been huge for both teams. But yeah, I suppose, like I said, we're probably crying out for a bit of a break mentally and physically. I reckon most times you have a bye at round 6, 12 and 18, and then 2 byes in the season. So it's broken up into 3 parts, really. Whereas this year, 12 months out, getting right to round 13, and I think we've seen lots of injuries this year. Whether that's bad luck, whether it's 12 months out, I'm not too sure. But it's been probably just a good little freshen up. But the more games we miss, and the current position we are sitting 6th, every game comes even more cutthroat now that you must win, and you can't afford to drop any more games because it's such an even competition.
What's been the message from the leaders? And, one thing that we should point out, that you're a father of 3. I suppose you don't live in the town of Drysdale, but the point that I want to get at is how important are your support staff, not just the captains and, the Mitch Maguires and those sorts of players, but even, Brent Taylor, an assistant, how important are your support staff around COVID and even say fitness coaching and all that, to making sure that, the players are being kept up to date with things, and, you've got a fair bit on your plate. So are you a really good delegator during COVID and making sure that those other roles are filled?
It's a tricky situation. We're pretty fortunate. We've got a strength and conditioning person on board this year that's been really good with our fitness, and he helped out preparing programs last week for guys where it's a combination of cardio and trying to touch footies within the restrictions that they could do. So Ross Solano's been brilliant with that. We're probably fortunate that we do have a large coaching group to bounce ideas off, but then also our leadership group's really good. They're really driven. They want to get back out there playing. They've played a lot of senior football too, so it's good to get them to have an input as well. It's tricky just how far do you go? You don't want to overcomplicate it too, because there's so much uncertainty. When are we going to be allowed to play? You don't want to put too many ideas in because things can change pretty quickly. So yeah, it's good that we've got guys to bounce ideas off. How much information do you overload, or how much information do you put together? Because things can change pretty quickly, as we've learned the last 12 months with restrictions and lockdowns.
Now, I understand that not only family plays an important part in your life, and having listened to the fact that your dad has been probably the biggest influence on your career, and also coached one of the previous coaches at Drysdale, and John Fitzgerald, who was a Geelong player and a VFL player and played at St. Joseph's. But if we look at, I suppose, COVID and how you've spent lockdown and the season last year, do you sort of take back those things in life where you look at and think, I might not always have bricks and mortar, or, I might not always have these, outlets where the things that my active pursuits are in there, but do you just sort of cherish the time that you have with your family and ensure, well, hey, I missed the couple of last weeks of footy of not coaching, but last year I got to catch up on how my kids were growing up, and I really enjoyed that time.
Yeah, definitely. I think you hit the nail on the head. It was good to probably have a bit more of that time at home with your family, and spend that one-on-one time and do different things. But obviously you couldn't do as much as you would like, obviously with restrictions in place, but you did learn to probably appreciate football, or what football means to you, and football clubs, and then the people around it that make it. Yeah, definitely. But I know last year I tried to think a lot about the playing group, and I broke it up into sort of three parts, like the younger guys around, 17 to 21, how they would be feeling. Then the next to that middle 20-year bracket, mid-20s age bracket. Then the guys in their late 30s that are coming towards their end of their career, and they're having games of footy taken away from them. So I tried to think of those scenarios too. How would I be feeling if I was an 18, 19-year-old kid? I'd be just devastated if football was taken away from me. Same if I was mid-20s. And then I suppose the older you get, your time's more valuable, like your time poor, because you've got other interests, whether it's bigger priorities with work, priorities at home with your family, things like that. So, yeah, it was definitely good to spend a bit more family time, but I was also conscious of, just keep checking in with the players, making sure they're working and making sure their mental health was good.
It's been interesting too, because you might have realised this, but on episode 3, we had, at the time, you were the co-coach when you took over with Daniel Jull. So when I reached out to him, I got to meet him, and I wanted to find out about, how he was going during that period of lockdown, but also with the headaches and that sort of stuff. So because he had to sort of take a step back from football and concentrate on his own health and his work and his family. But you yourself, I mean, you're technically you're doing it alone now, but at the same time too, you've really only had, probably the 8 games and, a bit of a blockage in terms of where the season is. So even pre-season last year, it was a long pre-season, but then you had restrictions and all that. So have you found the role since Daniel stepped down, Daniel Jull, have you found it time consuming, or because of these little breaks and lockdowns, has it fitted into your life?
It is time consuming. I suppose there's probably been a lot of other stuff in the background that's probably consumed my time, and obviously family comes first and work. And then, we had some stuff last year that occurred with our family home, and that's probably been a bit of a bigger distraction or taken away my time a little bit. So look, it is challenging and it is consuming football coaching, but I suppose it's one of those things. What you put in is what you get out, and if you want to go all in, you're probably going to get more rewards out of it. If you just want to go in half-hearted or not put as much in, you're probably going to not get as much, or the players aren't going to get as much reward. So it definitely is challenging, and I suppose COVID's got a bit to do with that. The stop-start restrictions in place, especially in pre-season, it was challenging to start with. We didn't want to go too hard too early, just because of 12 months out, and just basically just get the players back together again before we started. We didn't want to hit the ground running straight away. Just want a slow, gradual build, because it is a long season. So it is challenging trying to fit it all in. We find a way.
Now, I had a look at your stats. You've had an impressive local footy career. So the aspect is that, you did come back to Drysdale, having sort of retired when you were at North Shore, not playing in 2012 and then 2013. I mean, I suppose at that point in time in 2013, were you sort of you'd already made that pathway into sort of senior coaching? I actually remember having a look, trawling back through some archives, even though I'm younger than you, Luke, and I'll say that I'm younger than you, and you know that I am. But the point is that I remember doing something with Reece Holwell, the supplement of the Drysdale Clifton Springs Voice, which was in addition to the Ocean Grove Voice, which came out 3-4 times a year. And I think at the time, about 2013, you were appointed, and he was helping out, playing assistants. So was that a bit of a key that you knew that 2013 would be your last year, and you were making that pathway into coaching? And that year was a sort of, you could say it was semi-successful year, because, you got to a grand final, you had John Fitzgerald at the helm. Was there a real sort of, did he preach having those on-field leaders, and did you know that off-field coaching wasn't going to be far away once 2013 finished?
Yeah, I suppose, I'd stopped playing and I got told by doctor's advice to stop playing, because I've had I've got some hip issues. So I had both hips impingements, and so I had 2 operations on my hips. I had one at the end of 2009, and one at the end of one in 2011, and I was basically told not to play anymore. So I'd stopped at North Shore, and it was quite difficult to keep playing, especially at that age. And I was keen to get into coaching, really keen. I'd done a fair bit of assistant at Drysdale, then at North Shore, and then John Fitzgerald got appointed obviously at Drysdale, and got a lot of respect for him, and obviously a bit of a connection there with my father. They played together, Dad coached him, great respect. It would have been great to learn off him. So I jumped into that, and I was just going to be a non-playing to learn off John and help out. And then every now and then at pre-season, I'd jump into some drills, and then one thing led to another, and I thought, my body feels really good here. And then I ended up having a kick that season, which was great. Like, I loved it. It took its toll on my body, but we nearly got another premiership there. It would have been fantastic to get to fluke another one. But it was, John was really good, and I suppose I learned a lot off him and experience. One of the best probably local coaches there's been around at GFL, and then obviously at Drysdale, and then to learn off him was really good. And play with those guys, Reece Holwell, we had great times playing together. Brent Taylor as well, and we had some really good leaders there. And Ben Carmichael was another player there who was coming into that leadership mould and more experience. So we had some really good players and a really good group. And unfortunately, we just couldn't get there on the day. I think we peaked a bit early. We beat Queenscliff in the second semi, and they were undefeated. And then come out in the grand final. They were just too strong.
Yeah, well, I know obviously that Drysdale wasn't that original club you started at, but when you think about the last 10 or so years, I feel like you've seen little snippets of generations. You've gone into that playing assistant role 2013. You played in the premierships 2009-10. Can't forget that. And then you went back to North Shore, come back to Drysdale, and then we went into the Wade Chapman era. I mean, I don't know what involvement there was, but it's interesting. You've sort of seen like a generation start to build at Drysdale again, haven't you?
Yeah, 100%. And like a lot of the guys that are still playing, there's not that many actually, like Ben Carmichael, Mitch Scott, they were younger guys when I was playing. I was probably in their shoes now. I was coming towards the end of my career. They were young, coming through, up and coming stars, and they've had great careers. And now it's coming towards them. And there was younger kids playing junior footy which are now in their mid-20s. Like Mitch Maguire, for one, he was playing senior footy at 16. And fast forward down the track, now he's the senior captain. And pretty bizarre how it all works out. Seeing these young kids grow, and then next minute they're senior players, mature adults, and I've got the opportunity to help out with their footy career.
Now, also too, you can talk about a little bit about what I found interesting was just doing a bit of research was that you're saying you had doctor's orders not to be playing late in your career, but
there we go.
But what I found interesting was that you were coming into this late phase of your career, and you might have been against doctor's orders not to be playing footy. However, when you retired, you went into triathlon, you went into Ironman. What happened there? Well, did your body just have not a spurt, but did it have this sort of like natural healing process the next season? And then all of a sudden, Bob's your uncle, you turn it up out of the oven, and then you're fresh as a daisy, and then you're competing in these triathlons. I mean, what happened sort of late phase of the footy career then to have that layoff to go into the triathlons? How did your body cope with it?
Oh, I don't know. It was pretty crazy and silly. I suppose footy's probably one thing, whereas, you're getting tackled, kicking, changing direction, bending over. I always wanted to do a triathlon, and me and my family, we go to Noosa, every year around that end of October, which is the Noosa Triathlon. And every year I'd be there and they'll be saying, oh, I want to do that. I want to do it. I said it for probably 5-6 years in a row, and a good friend of ours does triathlons. And the following year, she entered me. She entered me into the triathlon, paid for it, and said, you owe me $300. I've entered you in the triathlon. I'm sick of you saying you're doing it. So you are actually doing it. So I did the first one. I think that was in 2017, I think it was. And then from then on, I just got the bug. It was addictive, and I just really enjoyed it. And then went from that and did a half Ironman and a few more triathlons and another Noosa one. And I probably did that for 2 years. And then, my body was catching up there. And then I sort of realised, what am I doing, But it was good challenge for myself to learn a bit about it. It's a pretty demanding sport, with 3 disciplines: swimming, bike riding and running. Yeah, it was enjoyable, but I look back at it now just thinking, what the hell was I doing? It was pretty crazy, but it was good.
Well,
good fun.
Congratulations on all those achievements. I mean, for people to compete in marathons and, triathlons and Ironmans, and, there's one that's being just held up in Cairns. And Luke and Flybes, I really know that area pretty well, not just having lived in Queensland, but having spent a bit of time in Hastings Street. One thing I will say is that on the night that we're doing this, it's Origin night, but the thing is, you don't pay too much for a plate of chips at the Noosa Surf Club on a night like this, because it's like boiled lollies to chocolates. You're paying heaven and earth for it. So the good old Hastings Street provides a few good memories. memories.
It's a good spot, Noosa. Nice beach. The surf club's a pretty nice spot to tip a few into.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, wanted to talk a little bit about you had some, I suppose, unfortunate, I have a little bit of a laugh about, the Noosa Surf Club there, but in some ways, the reality of COVID has meant in your life that you've had an unfortunate situation last year. I want you to talk us through what happened, sort of how you not so much found out, but, just give us a bit of a diary tribe of, there was a tornado in Geelong last year, affected the southern suburbs, and the house that you're living in was affected. And where are we at with that case?
It just tops off 2020. We had COVID that wiped out, the footy season and, took a year out of people's lives. And then whoever thought a tornado would strike in Geelong in Warren Pond. So, in May last year, and there was no even word of a storm, I don't think. And I just remember, 1 o'clock at night, I've never heard anything so loud in my life. And me and my wife both just jumped up, and huge storm, thunder, lightning, rain, and the wind. It was like an aeroplane was landing on our roof. And the next minute we've got up and ran outside, and the whole backyard was a mess. And next minute water's pouring in from the ceiling on top of us, and we're like, what the hell has just happened? And obviously a tornado struck the neighbourhood, which was pretty bizarre and devastating for a lot of families there. And then from May onwards, we had just nightmare battle with insurance companies trying to get our house repaired. Just was one thing after another. And from May all the way through, the settlement wasn't made until November. So it was a really challenging, difficult and stressful year for us in that. You just, obviously COVID, 3 young kids, homeschooling, the stresses and uncertainty of COVID, and then having a tornado rip through our neighbourhood. And, we had 3 tarps on our roof for, until really March this year. We had props up holding our ceiling up. It was just a nightmare. It was sort of bizarre. You see those things on a current affair and 60 Minutes. And I remember me and my wife multiple times just going, we are these people on current affair or, these news shows that aren't getting a claim through their insurance. It was bizarre. You pay insurance for an emergency or something that bad happens that, you're going to get repaired or your car fixed or something at your home or health insurance. And then, to get denied. And it was a really stressful time for us and just, draining as well. And then finally, just recently, probably, 6 weeks, we've moved out finally. It's just dragged on and we've been moved out living in a rental at the moment for the last 13 weeks and repairs are slowly starting to take place now. Where hopefully it'll be all in the next probably, still another probably 8 weeks until repairs are fully done. So it's been a bit of a process and it's about $240,000 repair. Pretty much, it probably would have been easier to just bulldoze the home and start again. So, but things are happening, and it's stressful and tiring, and the inconvenience of it all. There's worse things that could happen to you in the world.
Probably glad that you didn't have to footy coach last year with all the stresses of that, and you've got 3 kids, and also you're working as a plumber as well. So I suppose in some ways, not having the stresses of coaching in the BFL as a senior coach with Daniel Jull stepping down and you going at it alone is probably one thing. There was probably one thing that you could rest knowing that, hey, there's no season, so I could actually focus on these other things in my life.
As disappointing as it was that we didn't get to play, and that there was times where to get hard. I was, my wife was working full time. I was working full time. I was traveling to Ballarat to work. Of all places to work in winter wasn't the nicest of places, Ballarat. It was. It took your mind. If football was on, I don't know how I would have handled it. With kids and having their life turned upside down with no school and sport. The uncertainty of that, and then the house. It was something that I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. But things are moving forward now.
What did you get to enjoy? Not just with the kids last year, but what did you get to enjoy with that time? Because you probably needed those things with what was going on with the house, and the fact is that even work was changing, going to Ballarat and wife working and all that. What things could you enjoy? Was it able to go for bike rides? Was it able to, I don't know, maybe look around the home and catch up with some things, or reconnect with other people? Was it doing Zoom chats with the footy players on, as I said, on Zoom? I mean, what were those things that you could do?
I don't know. It's been that long since a lot's happened since then, but I suppose it's funny how you learnt to just adapt. Zoom was, I suppose, one thing, and obviously with players and that we still kept training or put some programs in place for the players to to continue their fitness with the hope that, season could come. We put some different varieties of fun stuff as well, just to keep the mood up. I know with friends, we did lots of Zoom sort of thing, trivia nights and stuff like that. But like I said earlier too, it was good to probably just have some real good family time and just appreciate some things as well. And I grew a beard. That was one thing I did.
You grew an ISO beard, eh?
Yeah, it was pretty ordinary too. It was lots of grey and red hair. The kids loved it. It was a bit of a laugh. But the wife, she didn't enjoy it at all. But
were you like the Santa Claus around the house, or was there more hair here or anywhere else, or what?
There's probably more hair on my face than what there is on my head these days.
Well, hopefully coaching I hope your hair hasn't been lost to coaching. There you go.
I was bald before that. I reckon coaching in the last 12 months would have made me bald for sure.
I guess the thing is that we want to sort of bring in about this Ryanatkins situation. Unfortunately, one of your players passed away during the last year or two, and then you had a virtual ride to South Australia through that, and you wanted to continue on that legacy, and obviously Queenscliff suffered a situation with one of their players who actually I know their father really well. I've had a bit to do with my work, and his father's work has sponsored this podcast as well in Chris Niven, and I guess the importance is here that June 26, providing it all goes ahead with COVID, that you are going to play a game in memory of both those players. So just talk to us about that on June 26th.
Yeah, I suppose, last year we did some really good things at the club in isolation to keep engaged with the footy club. We did a bit of a fundraiser virtual thing where we called it a 30 for 30 for Ryan. And you either ran 30 kilometres, walked for 30 minutes, donated $30, whatever you could, and that was Ryan's playing number. And it was really good that the club, town, community, all the sections got involved, and that was a really big success. And then just over the summer, I know AFL Barwon sent through to probably all clubs about, if teams and clubs wanted to have certain fixtures altered or certain games. And I just thought about, personally for Drysdale, the footy club and the town and the community, the tragedy that happened to us. And then I remember Queenscliff went through the same thing as well. And I just thought that maybe both clubs could come together at some point in this season when we played each other and play a game in sort of memory of those guys, and also other people that have lost their lives or are struggling with mental health. It's such a big thing now, and probably more so after what's happened in the last 12 months, mental health with COVID. So if both clubs have responded and just done, I know personally for us, have just done such a fantastic job to rally around families and players, and it was just amazing. It was such a tragedy, but the way the club responded and looked after one another and it was unbelievable. It's hard to explain really, and we probably want to keep going in that direction to learn from it, that we never want to experience that again. So if both clubs and communities can keep raising that awareness and getting young men or female young women or adults as well, whoever it might be, to open up and start that conversation or look after their mental health, so we never have that tragedy again. And if we can do that game, we're looking at trying to make this an annual event that we'll play for a certain cup. We haven't, both clubs are in discussions with finalising the details for the game, but we'll have a cup, find out a name for that in honour of mental health of those two guys. And if we can raise some important money and awareness to it, I think it'll be a great success, and we can prevent something from happening. It's huge.
Well, we're just about to wrap up, and absolutely we want to put out the support to those people, that the young people. And unfortunately, you see it on the news that I suppose not just suicide rates, but young people are vulnerable during this COVID period. And if you're a teenager, get the support around you. Talk to your friends, talk to your mates. Even if you're a male, it's really important to do that. Just another thing, and we're going to wrap up. I did get to meet you, and we've been in discussions, and as I said, we don't live too far away from each other. And I got a photo, and we got the palm tree at the back. But one thing I did notice was that when I came to your place the other day, there was the caravan, and I thought to myself, one of the guys that we had on this program, or he's been a sponsor and he's helped Rob Malcolm come on from Drysdale, was Shane Cuttager. He loves the caravan. He's been the cricket coach at Drysdale, and I just wonder where you're going to go when the country or the states open up post-COVID. What are you going to do with that caravan at the moment? Where are you going to go to? Where when you have a holiday with the kids and the family, where's somewhere you'd like to go to drive that caravan?
It's funny you say that one out the front that you seen the other day. That one's up for sale. So if you're looking for a caravan, feel free to inquire within. That one.
Well, what is this? Is this a classified section of a podcast? This is a sport COVID podcast.
So that one is for sale. My wife twisted and she twisted my arm, and we upgraded a few months ago to a nicer caravan, which is sitting in storage. So that one we're trying to sell at the moment, which hopefully can happen pretty soon. As soon as footy season's over, I think in late September we're looking to go away somewhere nearby. Christmas we'll be heading off to Envelope, and then somewhere else in January. But we enjoy it, we love it. We talked about it for a while, and then 12 months ago, just before the COVID, we lashed out and bought the caravan, and we've got the bug. We love it. It's really good for the kids to get out and about, and for some, it's just relaxing. I don't know, you go to a caravan park and see you later, kids. I'll see you when you're hungry, and off they go playing and meet other kids, and we can sit back and relax. So it's good. Fun.
Good stuff. Well, again, thanks for joining us on the podcast on the Stoned Heen View. It's been episode 61. We have had on our program tonight, or today, has been the Drysdale Hawks senior coach in Luke Flybes Matthews, not Flybys, but we've got Luke Flybes Matthews that's been on the Stoned Heen View podcast. So, Luke, thanks so much for your time on the Stoned Heen View, and really appreciate all the things that you've gone through to chat about what you've done during COVID.
No worries, Mark. Thanks for having me, mate. Good to chat, and thanks for the continued support at Drysdale Footy Club.
Not a problem. Well, we've had a few guests on the Drysdale Football Club, and Luke Flybes Matthews is just one of them. So if you can get in contact at any stage, if you have a guest in mind from sport, we're going to have a little bit of a break over post-June 23, and we're actually going to have an Olympian coming up next week to talk us through about the Tokyo 2021 Olympics, which would have been in 2020. But you can get in touch with the Stoned Heen View on Facebook and Instagram. We've got the business edition as well. Our podcast is available on all different podcast forums, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, launching platform is Podbean. Write us a review. Tell us what you think about the podcast. We're also on YouTube channel, and we've also got a Twitter account at Stoned Heen View. So until next time, this has been the Stoned Heen View for episode 61 with Luke Flybes Matthews. We're going to have an Olympian next week on the Stoned Heen View for episode 62, and we'll see you soon.